Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Sin City, starring Jessica Alba, Benicio del Toro, Brittany Murphy, Clive Owen, Mickey Rourke, Bruce Willis, and Elijah Wood, directed by Robert Rodriguez, Frank Miller, and special guest director Quentin Tarantino. Now, why am I doing Sin City, and why did I not add this before when I was doing Tarantino before? The Tarantino reason is because this had nothing to do with him, I felt like. Number one. And number two, I'm doing this because I never read the graphic novel, but I remember really enjoying this one, but I don't remember too much about the sequel. So let's get into the movie, shall we? We open with the man, played by Josh Hartnett, coming up to a woman whom I'm guessing is the customer on a balcony in Basin City while he offers her a cigarette, and he tells her he'll never know what will come to her as he shoots her dead. And this opening sequence is one of the three stories called The Customer, or four and a half, I'll say at best, or three and a half, excuse me, is always right. The customer is always right, and it's very brief, and it tells us everything we need to know about Josh Hartnett's character, who's only in the start, and he'll show up again at the last scene, in which I'll get there when I get there. And we get images from the great Frank Miller graphic novel, and so far this movie is well filmed, and the images look tremendous from start to finish. And this is a great style for the movie to look somewhat like the graphic novel as we move on to That Yellow Bastard, Part 1, where aging police officer Hartigan, played by Bruce Willis, is driving to the location where a serial child killer named Rourke Jr., played by Nick Stahl, whom I only know at the time from playing John Connor in the Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, while Rourke Jr. is the son of Senator Rourke, played by Powers Booth, who has the police bribed for covering his son's crimes as Hartigan stops Rourke Jr. from sexually assaulting and killing an 11-year-old named Nancy Callahan, played by Alexa Vega's sister, Mackenzie Vega, while his partner Bob, played by Michael Madsen, waits for a backup, and for that, Hartigan knocks his ass out. While Hartigan is one of Bruce Willis's somewhat better, I guess not so decent performances, while Nick Stahl is somewhat good, while he looked like one of the bad kids with that long haircut, looks like an asshole. And the green screen in this whole movie makes this movie as great as to look at. Rourke Jr. tries to escape with Nancy until Hartigan gets behind him and shoots his ear, arm, and nuts. Yes, I went there. And Bob comes in with the backup and shoots Hartigan to wound him while scaring poor Nancy, and Hartigan is knocked out while he saved Nancy's life. And we move on to another story with Marv, played by Mickey Rourke, humping Goldie, played by Jamie King of one of two roles, as a silent killer named Kevin, played by Lord of the Rings' Elijah Wood, off-screen kills Goldie. And the problem with Marv's voice is he's mumbling, as I could somewhat understand what he's saying, but not all of it. And Marv kills the cops and gets in the water to escape and goes to his parole officer named Lucille, played by Carla Gugino, at her house to get some medicine, as each main character has a narration throughout the movie, like Marv has one and Hartigan had one at one point earlier in the film. And it works for me for this movie. Marv walks into a bar where Nancy, as an adult, played by Jessica Alba, is dancing. And while we'll see her more later in the movie, as Shelley, played by Brittany Murphy, serves them a drink, as well as Dwight McCarthy, played by Clive Owen, who's the other person we're going to have another focus story on later in the movie, narrating that some people think Marv is crazy, while a couple of criminals take out Marv outside, and Marv beats the shit out of them, and he gets answers from other criminals, while another woman named Wendy, who's Goldie's twin sister, and also played by Jamie King, who is led to believe Marv killed Goldie, as she finds Marv while in a car and runs him over, and Marv doesn't believe that was Goldie, as he gets information about a farm where Kevin eats people outside Basin City. As Marv arrives at the farm, and Kevin beats the shit out of Marv quickly and quietly, and Lucille happens to be trapped where Marv is at, and as well, and Kevin off-screen eats Lucille's arm, and Lucille says to Marv Goldie was a hooker, in which he didn't realize as the cops come in, and Marv almost kills them, but Lucille knocks him out, And the cops shoot Lucille dead until Marv ends up killing. I like how you can sometimes you can use your imagination on some sequences as they don't completely show it, which will work for the audience very well, in my opinion. With Lucille gone, Marv gets out of the farm and goes to Old Town Basin City and asks other hookers around about Goldie as Wendy sees Marv and shoots him down, and he's taken to Wendy, Gail, played by Rosario Dawson, and Becky, played by Alexis Bledel, who was on my mother's favorite TV show, Gilmore Girls, but I first saw her in a movie called Tuck Everlasting, where Wendy asks Marv where Goldie is, and he tells her she was nice to him while all tied up until he easily gets out of there, all being tied up, which was very weird to me. And Marv takes Wendy to the farm and grabs some weapons as well as traps to kill off Kevin, and she drives Marv to the farm, and Marv tries to kill off Kevin, and he flips and almost beats up Marv until he handcuffs him with Kevin and beats the shit out of him. And Wendy comes in and wants to kill off the bastard until Marv smacks her and doesn't want Wendy to watch as he cuts Kevin in half, and his dog eats his flesh. And again, you can imagine what it looks like while it's all white, which doesn't show too much, as that was a smart choice by the directors of this movie. Marv brings Wendy to Nancy's place and shows Kevin's dead body to a man named Cardinal Rourke, and suddenly kills Cardinal Rourke off screen. Well, no, not off screen, but anyways. And Marv gets captured by the Cardinal's guards, where he's taken to the mental hospital, where the cops beat the living shit out of him and threaten to kill his mother in order to get a confession, where he killed the Cardinal, Kevin, and their victims, as he's sentenced to death by an electric chair, and his only visitor is Wendy, who tells Marv he can call her Goldie, and Marv is electrocuted twice until death. And this is the second best of the three stories, and that is told throughout the movie, in my opinion. As we move on to a new story called The Big Fat Kill, where Jackie Boy, played by Benicio del Toro, who abuses Shelley, harassing her nonstop as she lets him and his crew inside her apartment by Dwight hiding in the shower. And these motherfuckers freeload at Shelley's place, and the acting in this story works with Benicio del Toro, Clive Owen, and Brittany Murphy, as they're great in this movie. Jackie Boy takes a leak in the bathroom as Dwight comes up with a knife to Jackie Boy and makes him suffocate by his own fucking urine, which is fucking disgusting. And they leave Shelley's place as Dwight goes after him while they go into Old Town Basin City, ran by Gail, whom we met in the previous story. And the cops know not to fuck with them, her and her hookers, I'll say, as they harass Becky, whom we also met in the last story by telling her to get in the car until a silent ninja named Miho kills every single last one of Jackie Boy's gang members, including Jackie Boy. And this is probably, in my opinion, the best of the story of any of them, as the acting is the best of the three stories, and my favorite character actor is in this story as well, and I will get to who in a few minutes. Dwight learns Jackie Boy is a cop, in which we didn't hear from Shelley, no thanks to the helicopter, as Becky fears this is becoming a war zone like it was in the past, as Dwight wants a car with a big trunk to fit the bodies, while Gail points a gun at Dwight, and Dwight smacks Gail, and she suddenly smooches him so damn hard, and they get the car with the big trunk, which isn't big enough, as Miho cuts the bodies in pieces, while Becky calls her mother and rats out Gail and the hookers, as Dwight ends up with Jackie Boy's dead body right next to him while driving to bury the bodies, as Jackie Boy annoys the crap out of him, and he almost runs out of gasoline, and the cops end up behind Dwight and pull him over for a light burned out, and gives him a warning. And this is a decent cinematography movie, as the editing was tight in my opinion. Dwight pushes the car off a hill until the squad comes in and shoots Dwight until the hookers come in to save his ass before he gets blown up, and they bring him back while Gail is captured by a head mercenary named Minute, played by Michael Clark Duncan, as his acting is great, whom I've always been a fan of this man before he passed away. May he rest in peace. as he's another reason why this is my favorite story of the movie, as Becky reveals herself as she told her mother on the phone that she'll be in a war zone, and Gail calls Becky a bitch for betraying them, and a note comes in through a guy with a Nazi tattoo head and says to bring the women. And again, Michael Clark Duncan was the best thing about the movie. Manute brings Gail and Becky outside to Dwight as he has the head of Jackie Boy and made a trade for Jackie Boy's head for Gail. As Becky learns Jackie Boy's mouth is taped, which never was before, with a bomb in his head, as Dwight, Gail, and the hookers kill Manute and his henchmen while Becky escapes. And again, Dwight and Gail smooch at each other very hard. And this is probably my favorite story of any of them. And we go back to my least favorite story of this whole movie. Back to Hartigan, as he's approached by Senator Rourke telling him Junior is in a coma and their legacy is in serious jeopardy. While Hartigan lies down in the hospital, Nancy talks with Hartigan about how the cops don't believe her, as she wants to write letters to Hartigan as she's in love with him and for saving his life. And I don't buy the love between Hartigan and Nancy as a kid, even as an adult, which is a part of the reason why this is my least favorite story in the whole movie. Hartigan is in prison and he gets tortured, for 8 years, and Nancy writes to Hartigan as the letter comes every single Thursday until 8 years pass, where Hartigan is no longer reading her letters to Hartigan as he's afraid for her and he believes he's all alone while he sees Junior, aka the Yellow Bastard, as Hartigan smells the Yellow Bastard stink, and he eventually gets out of the prison, and Bob happens to be there to take him to Basin City while the Yellow Bastard spies on him and follows him around, while Hartigan hears the news of his ex-wife remarrying someone and has a family, and goes to a place where he believes Nancy is at, which is at a bar, and is 19 years old. And Hartigan believes the Yellow Bastard followed him there. As Hartigan tries to walk out, but Nancy recognizes him and jumps off the stage as she smooches him. And honestly, they have no chemistry whatsoever, which is so sad to me. Nancy drives her car with Hartigan in there as the Yellow Bastard shoots at them. And he shoots at them while Hartigan takes his time and shoots the bastard while Hartigan believes he's dead because Junior crashes the car in the ice. And Hartigan and Nancy go to a hotel while the bastard follows them all the way there, as his stink comes with them, as well as Nancy trying to kiss Hartigan until they do, as he feels very uncomfortable with it and says he loves her too. And he takes a shower and gets knocked out by Junior, and he hangs Hartigan and tortures Nancy, and the bastard watches them suffer while Junior sends a couple of guys picking up Hartigan's body as he beats their asses and goes to save Nancy's life from the farm where Kevin lives at. And for what little he does, Elijah Wood does pull off Menace quite well. While this story is a little predictable, Hartigan hears the Yellow Bastard whipping and yelling at Nancy as he tortures her until he gets shot in too much of a hurry, and kills a couple of cops and walks in the farm and tells Junior to give it up. And it's over, and Hartigan barely gets up as he eventually stabs the bastard in the stomach, grabs his nuts once again and pulls them out, and punches him in his head so hard it's gone, and gets Nancy the fuck out of the crime scene. And Hartigan stays behind him and kills himself. And we move on to the hospital, and we see Becky casted up in the arm from that gun wound she got earlier, and goes into the elevator and sees the man, aka the Josh Hartnett character, in a doctor's uniform, as he offers Becky a cigarette as she does off screen. And what kind of a doctor gives someone a cigarette? Which didn't make much sense, but the climax was good. But how good was this movie? Let's talk about it in a rating. I'll give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. While the movie is well filmed, the images look tremendous from start to finish, as this is a great style for the movie to look somewhat like the graphic novel. While the green screen is great to look at, and some of the characters are likable more than others, as they each have a narration throughout the movie, and it works for this movie. I like how sometimes you can use your imagination on some sequences so they don't completely show it, which works for the audience very well. And it was a very smart choice by the directors of this movie, And Dwight's story, aka The Big Fat Kill, is the best of the three stories, as the acting in that story was great, even from Michael Clark Duncan, whom I've always been a fan of his before he died. May he rest in peace. And while my second favorite was the story with Marv, called The Hard Goodbye, is the second favorite of mine. And as my least favorite is That Yellow Bastard, because Bruce Willis didn't have the presence he had in the late 1980s, early 1990s. The cinematography is decent, as the editing was tight, and the black and white with very little color, which is a very strong choice for this movie, as this is a recommendation for it, as this is a good movie based on a graphic novel that is violent in a stylized way. And I do like this movie, as I wish it was more than I do at this point. But the story with Bruce Willis felt very unsatisfying. But at the end of the day, it was a good attempt for the graphic novel. But we'll see how the movie works next, how the next movie will work next time. So I would like to thank you guys for joining me. And next time we'll be back with Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. And until then, goodbye, Sin City.